All right. Good morning, Doug. We're back with questions from members of the file. The file is our private membership group, and you get that if you are a subscriber to Crisis Investing. So if you're interested, go check out crisisinvesting.com. First question, Doug. This person says they really appreciate your thoughtful and independent thinking, knowledge and wisdom, all this that you bring to the table. I have one question about morals, though, that touches on whether there is God or not. Doug, why are you so sure there is no God and that Jesus is not his son? How do you believe the universe came into being by accident? Where do morals in investing or otherwise come from if there is no higher being or God? I also, as Doug, left the Roman Catholic Church for diverse reasons, but I'm very convinced that Jesus is God's son.
Okay, well, these are some pretty cosmic questions. As far as the Roman Catholic Church is concerned, which likes to style herself as Holy Mother of the Church, that's just an accident of birth. I mean, I happen to have been born at a time and place where, that's what I grew up in. And, Adolf Hitler, believe it or not, was, and as I recall from having read Mein Kampf, I'll have to check, Hitler considered it one of the most fortuitous things in his life that he grew up a Roman Catholic. So
Really?
take that for what it's worth. Personally, I don't. But all right, let's get back to this. So God, well, which God are we talking about? Quite frankly, I presume it's the Abrahamic God that we read about in the Old Testament, basically, and the New Testament. But wait, that's just one God who's generically styled as God. Uh, and I don't even know, when you ask that question, do you mean Jesus, since you believe in Jesus? He's God, or has become God. He wasn't God to start with, but he became God. And he's got, one set of characteristics and beliefs. Or do we mean Yahweh, who they say is his father, who seems very different from Jesus in all respects that we read about? Or maybe it could be Allah, who is the same Abrahamic God. I mean, God, but he's very different from the other two. So which are we talking about? But if we weren't born in our current milieu, maybe there'd be some different God. I mean, if it was 2,000 years ago, our God might have been Zeus, or it might have been Odin, or it might have been other. Well, whatever happened to them? I mean, they were very valid and believed in at the time. So, don't listen. Don't get caught up in dogma just because you grew up being taught a certain paradigm. Okay, I mean, on the other hand, listen. I used to have fun debunking and discrediting other people's religious beliefs, but I don't do that anymore because I think people need to believe in something. Something. That's why religion's always been there. So I don't try to discredit or take that away from people. I mean, we can have an intelligent discussion about it, and it'll become apparent that I don't believe in these things. But I'm
What
not
about
saying what you believe in is wrong. It's like Frank Sinatra said, anything that gets you through the night.
what about the connection, the question about morals? How could you believe in morals, that there are morals, if there is no higher being or God?
Well, this idea of morals being mixed up with religion is a recent one, historically speaking, that mix. In other words, in the ancient world, philosophy is where you decided what was right and what was wrong, what your morals should be, what your ethics should be. And we were talking the other day about the difference between morals and ethics. And that's another rabbit hole that we don't need to go down right now. What difference is there between the two of them? Or isn't there, for practical matter, as a practical thing between morals and ethics? But it used to be that you determined, I mean, in the ancient world, when people actually had the time and the interest in talking about these things seriously, you determined what was moral or what your ethics should be through philosophy, logic, observation, thought. But religion got mixed up into it in early Christianity, where now you gotta, what's right or wrong is not what you figure out and determine rationally and logically. It's what somebody who wrote a book tells you is the case. It's dogma, not reason or logic. And it's anti-human. If you believe things that you have no rational basis other than a book that somebody wrote that you just have to believe in, or else you're going to go to hell or whatever happens to you. So I don't know if this is a good answer to, maybe
No,
there
I
is
think it
no
is.
good answer
I
to
think it
these
is.
things.
It's that the morals do not come from dogma. They don't come from God. Or if they come from God, they don't come through a book and man. They come from, an observation, your ability to, they exist without the necessity of having a religious dogma, I guess is my point.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, I'd like to talk to God personally. Would I hallucinate him? I've never met the man or the being personally, but listen, for all I know, maybe they were correct in the illustrated novel, comic book, some would say, called The Watchmen, where at the end of that, I rather liked the fact that one of the characters, Dr. Manhattan, attains great powers and decides that he was tired of this planet and decides, I'm going to go off, did he say a different, I think to a different galaxy and create life. So, and it's very funny. I was in Buenos Aires with Ross Beatty, who a lot of the listeners of this will know who Ross is. He's a very bright guy, very good guy. We're old friends. Ross has become a billionaire in the mining business. And we're sitting there with a third guy who's a Muslim, okay, Nash. And it's very funny. It turns out that Ross was wearing some Dr. Manhattan cufflinks. And I remarked to Ross, you're a fan of Dr. Manhattan too. And Nash says, well, who's Dr. Manhattan? And we had to explain to him how Dr. Manhattan became God. And he was shocked that anybody could not believe in his version of the Abrahamic God. So it's don't take this stuff too seriously. Take philosophy seriously. Take right and wrong seriously, but don't take these dogmatic notions of various religions too seriously. That's
Okay.
my answer.
Okay. Next question. Is there any way that China can overthrow its totalitarian government and have a decent life in the future for its citizens? Or is it the new way of things that once a super parasite system takes control in these modern nuclear days, it never loses control?
Well, I think, look, the life of the average Chinese person has improved unbelievably and immeasurably over the last couple of generations. I mean, China went from being one of the most backward and primitive and just horrible places under Mao to now being more advanced than the West is in many ways. So is it that bad in China? Actually, not. We have this idea of the communist Chinese. Well, they're not communists to start with. That's gone. The Communist Party is just a scam for the people on the top of the society to, live high off the hog. They don't believe any of this. They don't believe in this communist nonsense anymore. So will the Chinese overthrow the government there? Well, maybe a better question is, at what point are the Americans going to overthrow their government? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, in terms of serving its general population, China's done a lot better with that over the last 2 decades than the American government has. I think there's no question
standard
about
of
that.
living in China has gone up, 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 and the standard of living of Americans has gone down. And insofar as it's been maintained, it's by taking out more debt, which means mortgaging the future or consuming capital that others have saved in the past. That's not good. So,
Right.
I mean, there's every chance that the Chinese are heading for a crisis for a number of reasons, but I think there's an even bigger chance that the US and Europe are heading for a crisis.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is, wouldn't a truly free country be extremely weird in that all the cultural memes and programming people experience would no longer be forced on others by pressure and threats? Wouldn't the multidimensional weirdness of a place be a measurement of how free it was?
Yeah, okay. Well, of course, I'm sure the questioner believes, as we do, that coercion and force are bad things. When some people exercise them over other people, generally it's the government that does these things because it's legal for the government to do it, but not legal for others to do it. So would it be weird? Well, I kind of like weird. I like different. I like experiments. So I have no problem with that. I have a problem with coercion and force. I don't know. You think that's an answer to the question, or am I going off on a tangent from that
Well,
question?
well, it's the question. The question is whether or not a really free place would appear really weird. I mean, it'd be so diverse with non-homogenized preferences, I guess, that it would be strange. I think that's a question.
Yeah, well, I think that would be good strange, frankly. I don't like to see people regimented. We're all wearing Mao suits, if you would, looking the same. You get your choice between gray, green, blue, and brown. I guess those are 4 color selections. Oh, no, I'd say no, let 100 flowers bloom. The more weird, the better. As long as there's no violence and no coercion, that's great.
So would it end up like the Star Wars bar, that famous Star Wars bar? Of course, there was some violence there, but there was no coercion, really.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be violence in society. I just don't. I think violence just ought to be minimized, and certainly state violence, which is legal violence, should really be minimized. But yeah, you're going to get individual bad actors. People have a psychotic break or have a bad day, and it winds up in violence. Okay, well, that's the nature of life. But you got to recognize your enemy here is the state, which is organized violence.
Okay. All right. This guy has a concern about Bitcoin. He wonders, there's been a lot of suspicions about Bitcoin. In fact, Roger Ver published a book just before he was arrested. He was a participant of this Bitcoin Cash fork, I guess, and suggests that Bitcoin was compromised along the way. And then there are some people that speculate, there's no proof that the NSA was involved in the original creation of it. So he just wonders if Bitcoin was designed to be a CBDC, or at least a setup to usher in the era of CBDCs.
I'd say the odds of that are very, very low. Uh, whoever Satoshi was, mathematical genius, He was looking for something that would solve a few of the problems with gold as money. And I think he did. So I'm a believer in Bitcoin, and, the forces of darkness have adopted some elements of it and perverted it. But no, I don't buy any of that.
Okay. All right. Next question. Jim Rickards said the deep state is Trump proofing the presidency as they expect Biden to lose. He says they are seeking to lock in policy decisions and regulations before the election that can't be undone while Trump is in office. An example Rickards gave is that Trump could not unseize the Russian US Treasury securities until 2029, which is after his presidency would be over. That date is chosen because he will specifically be out of office. And another example is that Trump could not strike a peace deal with Russia over Ukraine. What do you think about Trump proofing?
Well, Trump proofing. It's interesting. It's not Republican proofing, because got to recall who the last few Republican presidential candidates or presidents were. I mean, like Mitt Romney, horrible human
McCain?
being. McCain, another horrible human being. Both of them should be Democrats. The baby Bush, uh, so why are these people so afraid of Trump? I guess is the first question. And why are they so afraid of Trump in particular? Well, these other people are non-entities. I guess that's one reason. And Trump, is definitely a loose cannon. There's no question about that. But well, can they Trump-proof things? Okay, you steal all these Russian assets. Well, why is it not possible to unsteal them? And you stole it from somebody. Okay, now you give it back. So what's the magic? We can't do this for 4 years. This is unclear to me.
I think they built these things into the legislation around it. So the idea is that the executive couldn't override these acts of Congress.
Oh, God. The US system is so corrupt through and through at this point. And they're just asking for trouble in every way possible. I guess the reason they really hate Trump, what I think, other than the fact he's a loose cannon that has no philosophical core and is therefore capable of almost anything, it's that he's a cultural conservative. He doesn't want to change the basic nature of America, which he'll wind up doing anyway. But I don't know. Look, this is a question for lawyers or Talmudic scholars that are masquerading as lawyers to answer whether they've tied things up in a way that if Trump is elected, which is not a foregone conclusion anyway. I think he's going to win the popular vote, but I still think the Democrats are going to wind up being installed. These people have control of the apparatus of the state. They're psychological Jacobins. They're not going to let go of it voluntarily. So I wouldn't assume that they're planning on Trump being in office.
Yeah. One of the problems is that they try and, they Trump proof things by putting it in law, but at the same time, the insanity of the last, 4 years makes you think that the law doesn't really matter. I read about every week that Biden, forgiving more and more student loan debt, even after that was, that he did it once, and then they said it was unconstitutional. He had no right to do it, and yet he's still doing it on an ad hoc basis. $8 billion there, $10 billion there, and obviously all the lawfare, the stuff that's been waged against Trump. It feels like the seal's been broken on the idea that law is something that should restrain people.
Yeah, I think the Kraken has been released, frankly. It's pretty hard to put him back in there. Or or if you want to take something that's a little bit milder, like in Ghostbusters when Bill Murray is there with Sigourney Weaver, and she's laying there on the bed looking attractive, and he says, "Well, we have a policy about not getting into intimate relationships with clients." Well, it's really more of a guideline. And that's kind of the way the US, that's really the kind of the way the US government looks at these things these days. No, these people are, they're out of control. And they see these laws as guidelines, and these agencies, especially I think the CIA, but also the FBI, and who knows what the NSA is doing, and others. I mean, their powers onto themselves.
Mhm.
These guys, they have their own budgets, they have their own incomes. Uh, they can't be investigated because it compromises national security. I mean, they're actually really powerful governments within a government. So how much is Trump actually going to be able to do, assuming he actually becomes the president and assuming he actually wants to and dares to make these changes? Yeah,
Right.
what a dog's breakfast.
Speaking of dogs, the next question for some levity is some of us would like to know if Doug allows his dogs on the furniture.
Well, I certainly do, but I'm not the only person that lives in this house. My wife, uh, you know, uh, the dogs knowing that I'm a soft touch will come up to me, and then one paw, then the other paw, and before you know it,
They're on the furniture.
yeah. But my wife, when she discovers what's going on and walks into the room, they're immediately reprimanded.
Everyone in the room is like looks like they, including you.
Yeah, the one thing is the two female dogs can get away with this, but Oscar, my main battle poodle, is far too big and far too well disciplined to attempt anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, he wouldn't do it. Okay. What do you think about what's happening in Zimbabwe with their gold-backed currency that they launched, this digital?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that Gideon Gono's I haven't been in touch with. I'd like to see exactly what he's got to do with it, because he did write that paper he gave me about a gold dollar for Zimbabwe way back when. But the chances of Zimbabwe pulling that off are just about zero, because they can say it's a gold-backed dollar, Zim dollar, but it won't be gold-backed, because you're not going to be able to turn in your Zim dollar for a fixed specific amount of gold. I mean, it's just not in the governmental culture there to do that. So they can say that because they'll think it'll make people have confidence in the currency, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work because that government is just too dysfunctional to. I mean, I wish it would work.
But it only
Freedom of mind.
fundamentally will work if you can redeem the currency for gold at any time, right? That's the only condition that would make it work.
Exactly, a specific amount of gold. Sure, if that's the case, but there's no specific amount of gold that's been designated. It says gold backed. Okay, well, that's nice. Gold by how much gold? That two atoms worth of gold for $1. I mean, it doesn't say. So it's a sham.
Right. Yeah. And if it's not redeemable, you just can't believe it. I mean, it just doesn't even matter. Even if they say it's backed, it would diminish over time, right? If you can't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just a marketing scam.
Well, they're getting attention for it at least, and I like the sentiment, but unfortunately, it might discredit the idea.
Yeah, and in that article which was forwarded from Zero Hedge, it says, what did it say? Contrary to the or they were reprimanded or scolded by the IMF for doing. Well, why would the IMF scold it? Because it's not Well, I'd say it's because the IMF doesn't want gold to have anything to do with the currency at all. It's not the fact that it's not redeemable in a specific amount of gold, and therefore is kind of a fraud. They don't want to hear about gold.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. What are your thoughts on the use of life insurance as a means of tax sheltering capital, or just protecting capital in general?
Well, I'm not much of a believer in life insurance because the costs of life insurance are too high. Uh, the loading of sales costs on life insurance of your first year premium are typically all in, like 80% of your premium goes out the window. You can forget about that to start with. And continuing sales and administration costs are generally an unbelievable 10% per year. So the
Wow.
fact you get any return at all from your life insurance is uh, like the eighth wonder of the world, as far as I'm concerned, in addition to the fact that you're saving in dollars. And that's a bad idea. And maybe the life insurance company won't be prudently run. And you may not even get the dollars back for whatever they're worth. So if you need insurance to insure against your premature death, well, buy term insurance. And that's the end of the story. I mean, it may be that it'll have some advantages if the great taking proposition is correct. Might be. I think it might be, but it might not be. But I think that's why you have term insurance. But forget about an annuity. Forget about whole life insurance, I think.
Okay. All right. Next question is about Argentina. This guy says he's been to Argentina 40 or 50 times in the last 25 years. He thinks the people there are great. And he said the whole time that the country could be great if the government would just get out of the way. And we seem to be seeing that now. But he wonders why you're so confident that Argentina is a good place to invest when Javier Milei is one election or one bullet away from being removed. The Argentine people do not have a good track record at selecting their leaders. And the forces arrayed against Milei are at least as powerful as those deployed against Trump and Bolsonaro. If not more so, he says. So he says, I share the enthusiasm, but I'm skeptical he will be allowed to follow through.
Well, I agree totally. He's absolutely correct on all counts. There's no guarantees. But, you've got to choose between alternatives. So of all the countries in the world that are investable, which ones are going in the right direction? And it seems to me that Argentina is the only one there is that's got a shot. And yeah, they could blow it, but at least there's a shot that it's going to go the right way. And let's assume that he's not killed, and let's assume that other bad things don't happen. Yeah, I think he's going to pull it off because most of the Argentine people, in point of fact, especially the young people, support him. So I think there's cause for optimism. No
And
guarantees.
there's so much, has so much potential, that country does, that if some of the things go right, it just unleashes a lot of productive capacity, if nothing else, in their resources that they've got. I mean, and there's a little Argentine ETF that we've talked about before, ARGT, that is, I'm trying to pull it up right now. It's not loading for some reason, but I thought it was up like 35 or 40% already this year. So just shows you, I think, that it's becoming more and more investable by the day.
Yeah, and I would buy. I don't own any of it because I'm way over invested in Argentina anyway. So do I need more? Probably not.
Yeah.
But if you don't have anything in Argentina, I think that might be a good way to play it. A better way to play it might be to actually get on an airplane while it's still possible. I mean, there's no guarantee that that's going to be possible if you're leaving Europe or the US in the years to come for all kinds of reasons, and come down here and take a look at real estate prices. It's really, really cheap. I don't think you can get hurt. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah,
And
as
I
long as
think
you
that,
don't need to turn the capital around in 12 months, right? Because it doesn't It's not super liquid on the real estate side.
Yeah, but that can be an advantage. You won't
Yeah.
be tempted to, grab a few pennies off the table and run. That's not why you buy a piece of real estate, or not down here anyway.
In the US, it's been though. So it's trained
Yeah,
people poorly.
yeah. Well, there's no debt in the Argentine market because you can't get a mortgage, although they're talking about it now, which is a bad idea. Well, it's a good idea from some points of view, but no, long run, it's a bad idea. So, yeah, this is the place to do it. It's a debt-free, basically, real estate market, which is great when you're buying at that point.
Yeah. So this ETF I mentioned, it's only up now 16% because it had a big drop off a few days ago. So it's now, yeah, it's dropped. So it's cheaper now than it was a few days ago, for whatever reason.
Well, we'll have to sick Lao on that to investigate it for the newsletter, because there's a few alternatives like IRSA and Cresud and that, of course, and they're really worth looking at now. So we'll look into them thoroughly. I'll have to ask him if he'd like to do that, and he
Okay.
will.
Okay, good. Let's see. This next question is, I'm interested in Doug's view on what, if anything, could trigger a pullback in gold and silver prices so that I can back up the truck into the loading dock.
Well, I really appreciate the idea of buying on pullbacks, but and I'm sure there'll be some for one reason or another, but you've got to recognize that at least I think we're in a really major bull market right now from all kinds of points of view. And so the way you should buy your gold now, not with 100% of your money perhaps, and just keep easing in and buy more and buy more. There's all kinds of reasons gold should go a lot higher. So don't shoot yourself in the foot by trying to scavenge, trying to sharpshoot the market for a couple of points. This isn't the time to do it.
Okay. Next question says, the person, I'm based in Europe, so investing in gold and precious metals stocks in euro. They're slightly concerned that if the dollar weakens in general, it may weaken against the euro and my holdings lose out. Should I be concerned?
Well, I know if you're European, you're thinking in terms of euros, but the dollar is bad, but the euro is worse. I mean, look, the euro is an Esperanto currency. It's a totally artificial construct where you have all these countries they're still independent and they have different fiscal policies. And I mean, the euro is going to dry up and blow away before the dollar does. So look at it from that point of view.
Okay.
Anyway, when you're getting into gold, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're getting out of the euro, you're getting out of dollar, getting into gold. So, but yeah, you're holding on to a hot potato right now, whether you know it or not.
Yep. Okay. Doug, if you could pick one historical figure to manage your investment portfolio, who would it be and how would you convince them not to run off with your gold?
Historical figure well, we're looking for an honest person, honest and competent. You can be honest and just not know anything about stuff. That's not good. So who'd be honest and competent historically that is in this business, kind of financial, economic business? Kind of an academic question, since as a historical person, he's not around. So
What about Seneca?
yeah,
He managed a
well,
lot of money. He grew extremely wealthy himself.
mhm. Yeah, I guess Seneca would be better than perhaps Socrates, who was not terribly monetarily oriented as far as we can tell. Um, but honest. What historical person? Well, would you pick some famous Austrian economist like von Mises or Hayek, perhaps? Murray Rothbard, but he didn't know anything about the markets. He didn't really care about money except as a academic matter. I'm
Or
not
maybe
sure that
JP
that's
Morgan.
not, but I'm not sure that's not true of Hayek and Mises, quite frankly. That
Yeah,
when
maybe
it
you'd want to
comes,
go the opposite side and go to like a JP Morgan.
yeah, well,
Can't say he's honest. Who knows? But
yeah, this is a real problem. Who would that? Who is the shining light? Somebody that's unbesmirched by flaws, honest, competent, understands the markets. Who might that be? Well, I guess Buffett's proved himself to be, well, pretty honest, but it's not like he's not willing to use the state
always,
to his own advantage. But I don't think he'd steal money that he was managing for other people. That's not his bag.
yeah.
I don't know.
Good question. But Buffett would be an easy bet though. He's been definitely a great steward of capital for everybody who was in Berkshire all these years.
Yeah, yeah. And for whatever flaws he may have philosophically or what otherwise, he's done a great job. And, that's his persona. So, but as Buffett has pointed out himself, don't expect any spectacular results because, Berkshire Hathaway is basically the market. In fact, it's basically Apple at this point, which is about half of the value of Berkshire.
Wow.
So,
Okay. Let's see. And Doug, in your opinion, which wars or conflicts that the U.S. participated in were truly existential for the country?
I would say only two: the Revolutionary War and the war between the states. The others were, I wouldn't say sport wars, since post-World War II, those are all in sport wars. Totally, totally optional, kind of fun wars for people that like that kind of thing. But World War II was not existential. In fact, the US, I think, could have stayed out of World War II if they hadn't provoked the Japanese, and uh, left Germany to fight it out with Stalin. That might have been a solution that's kind of solved itself, but it wasn't existential for the US. World War
About
One,
the what about
totally optional sport war.
what about the
Big sport
1812
war.
war?
Well, the British invaded the US again. Was it existential? I don't think so. No. I mean, how did that start? It was to do, how did it start? Was that the British were shanghaiing American citizens on the high seas? Uh, and that's how it started? I'm not, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I'm not. I could look it up, but I'm not really sure either. But if there were foreign troops on U.S. soil, I think that comes to a different position than anything really since then.
Yeah, but they burned down the White House and then they went away and they weren't looking to, or didn't feel they were in a position, which they weren't, to conquer the country. So it wasn't existential.
So basically, it's wars of choice.
Basically, yeah, wars of choice. And except for the war between the states and the Revolutionary War, which was actually as much a civil war as a war of secession, like the so-called Civil War was a war of secession. I mean, if the other party had won, it would have changed the whole course of American history. But I don't think the others were going to do that.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So, a topic I often think about is how cultures are formed for groups of different sizes. It's a topic that both you and Doug have addressed at various times, specifically avoiding bad people, personality tests for prospective hires, and deciding when it might be better to move elsewhere, et cetera. So, my question is, would you mind talking about a time when you felt it necessary to lay down rules of acceptable behavior for a group that you were part of, and why you did so?
Well, I'm not big on laying down rules for groups. I mean, it's, I don't typically find myself in a so-called leadership position because, I just don't like leading other people or even directing them. So I don't think I'm the person to answer that question, frankly.
Did you have any rules around Eris?
Well, yeah. Not much other than, if you were invited to a private party, you were expected to behave in a appropriate manner. And what was appropriate was kind of decided by the ambiance of the people that were there. So, yeah, but there was nothing really written down, even for that. No. I mean, how many rules do you need other than, don't attack other people or steal their stuff? I mean, let's keep it simple.
Yeah, I think that basically applies. Like even in the, with employees I've had, I don't like policies. I like principles. Very simple, which is like you have to treat everyone with respect. You have to honor the commitments you make. Stuff like that. It's really basic.
Basic stuff, simple stuff, right. And if people don't have a grip of that, then these basic things, you don't associate with them. It's just really more trouble than it's worth, and it's probably dangerous. So yeah,
I agree.
It's
And
it's actually pretty simple.
It is, but people feel the need to have rules and groups all the time, and I remember that's one of the things in my companies I've always had to fight against. Like there's from the staff, they want rules to like control others all the time, and so you're constantly batting them down and just saying no. Well, like we don't need a policy about this thing. Let's figure out what's going on and let's make sure there's a principle. But so like as soon as you get a bunch of people together, it seems like they try to produce rules to jockey for political power in any group.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I don't like employees to start with. I mean, I don't like being an employee, and I don't like having employees. I like it when I'm dealing with people as more or less co-equals, where they're self-starters, as opposed to employees that are told what to do, or you're told what to do. That's not the paradigm I operate under.
Well, and that paradigm's the right paradigm for employees too. Because if you take this rule like that, I'm the boss, so I have a set of rules and you have a different set of rules, or that I would expect something. Basically, if you'd expect something of someone that you wouldn't expect of yourself, then the whole thing starts to become very bureaucratic and rules based and falls into chaos, I think. So even with employees, if you have an understanding that it is more like co-equals, I mean, certainly somebody has more input than others, but it's like moral authority rather than, positional authority might be the way to think of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because the more rules you have, the more incentive there is to game the system, which is corrupting naturally. So, Yeah, I just like to stay away from people that need too many rules, that need too much supervision. I mean, life's too short for that.
Yeah.
And they're the wrong type of person, from my point of view.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And a lot of it's a cultural thing in companies. You don't have to have a bunch of rules, but you have to have somebody who's a moral authority, honestly, to keep that together, or else it does fall apart.
Yeah, well, that would be the person that owns the shop. Comes down to
Yeah,
property rights, actually.
exactly. Okay. Next question is, what does the what value is the stock to flow ratio of gold and silver? Why is it important?
Stock to flow ratio. That
Do you know what that is?
I'm not sure about that term. Would that be the amount of gold in existence as opposed to the amount that's flows in new mined gold? You think that's what that means?
I think so. And he's specifically talking about the ratio between the two, and that apparently the yeah, I'll send you the chart later, but basically he's got some comparing gold and silver and the stock to flow ratio. The mean is 74 times, whatever this means, and it's below the mean now. So is that bad or good? He's a technical analyst, I guess, and looking at it from that
Yeah,
perspective.
I'm not sure what that means, but the amount of stock of gold, how much gold is there? Well, they guess, nobody knows, 7 billion ounces, good guess, amount of gold above ground. Amount of new gold that's mined varies, 80 to 100 million new ounces per year. So the amount of gold is growing at about, what, 1.33% per year or something. Is that the stock to flow ratio that you might be
I
referring
think
to, the 74
I
to
think
1?
so. Yeah.
Well, the amount of newly mined gold is trivial uh, when it comes to that, and it's not likely to change. It changed radically for a while with the discovery of gold in the New World when the Spaniards stole all that gold and silver from the Incas and the Aztecs. That had a huge effect. And, then the discovery of gold in California and the Klondike, another huge effect. A lot of gold all of a sudden. South Africa, a lot of gold all of a sudden. But is that likely to happen again? I don't think so, because the world has been pretty well picked over. And most of the gold that's mined now is like, it used to be that the Romans couldn't mine gold unless it was roughly an ounce per ton, or more, which is considered bonanza grade today, actually. And today they're mining, most of the gold that's mined, newly discovered deposits, we're talking 1/100th of an ounce per ton or 2/100ths of an ounce per ton. So, and we know where most of those deposits are. So I don't think if that's what stock to flow is, I don't think it's going to change radically in the future from this point on.
Okay.
Well,
We
of
talked
course,
about this.
we get into the asteroids. They know there's lots of heavy metals in the asteroids. Yeah, okay. That's quite a ways out in the future.
Look, I think last episode or the one before we talked about L'Estancia de Cafayate briefly. So this guy says he visited there in June of 2022. He got a tour, and he said there were many things he liked about it, but on the negative side, it looked like at the time of his visit that there was a slowdown, if not a standstill, on construction activity. And it made me wonder why. Please share with us your current views of L'Estancia and whether you would recommend buying property there now.
Well, I'm what's the word, distanced from it. I haven't been there since before the COVID hysteria, actually. So the information I give you is secondhand, but I do see the numbers, and there's like 150 houses that are built or late stages of construction,
Mm.
and that's quite a few. Have things slowed down? Nobody's indicated that to me. So I think everything's going along swimmingly. There are prices of Lots hit bottom a few years ago, and they've come up a lot since then. Is it a good place to be? Well, yeah, I think if you are a foreigner and don't want to live in Buenos Aires, it's an excellent choice because there's lots of other foreigners there, foreigners and rich Argentines, many of whom will speak English because they're upper class and rich. So I think it's a really good choice from that point of view, and it's got great weather and great facilities. So yeah, I don't have much of a financial interest in it anymore, frankly. I mean, we still own a lot of land there, undeveloped lots and this type of thing, but it's not a big deal for me at this point. So seems like a really good place to be. You just have to decide how much you like Argentina and you like being out there in Cafayate, which is very nice. So
It's a beautiful spot. One of the most high quality places to live I think I've ever been. Honestly, it's very nice. Lots of appealing qualities.
yeah, and lots of nice people, and it's quite international actually. So
Hmm.
that's a big plus, I think.
Have you seen a pickup since Milei was elected?
Um, I don't think so, not really.
Hmm.
Although, I do get people that passing through Buenos Aires, or for that matter, here in Punta, I think there's more than in the past, especially Europeans and Canadians that want to get the hell out of Dodge before it's too late. So, yeah, I think there has been a pickup of people coming to take a look at Argentina. I'd say yes.
Okay. All right. They're asking me to ask you what you did for your birthday, and they want to know which was recently, last couple weeks ago, and what are some of Doug's hobbies?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I said for years that I'm getting too old to play polo, but not old enough to play golf, kind of in that twilight zone. So, what hobbies do I have, frankly? You know, the fact of the matter is that I've become rather sedentary, and it's basically reading stuff and watching stuff. And other than that, you know, uh, having having had a problem with my foot, an infection that kept me from doing a damn thing. Uh, I'm anxious in going back to the gym and getting exercise. And when the weather's nice, I like to go swimming. Is that a hobby, swimming? I don't think so. It's just exercise. And going to the gym, that's an activity, but it's not a hobby. So I don't collect stamps anymore. I don't collect coins. Don't build model airplanes. I think I'm becoming a dull boy.
But you've had a lot of hobbies: skydiving, polo.
Yeah,
You've done lots of them in your life.
and all that stuff. Yeah. But, there's a time and a place for everything. So I
Okay.
don't know. Maybe I'll find something that really gets my attention.
Well, if you do, let me know. I'd like to hear what it
Yeah,
is.
I will. And let me know if you find something that looks like it might be fun.
I will. Okay. Next question. Do you think that the Biden regime will try to push the WHO treaty through without a 2/3 majority?
Yeah, they'll try to do yeah, as a practical matter, sure. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, these people who knows what's going on through their bent minds? Yeah, it's possible. And they'll use all kinds of suasion and rules and incentives and disincentives to make it work as a practical matter, if not as a formal matter, as we were talking about just earlier. So yeah, but we're dealing in aberrant psychologies. So how do you really know when you're dealing with crazy people that have no moral compass? It's hard to say. They're unpredictable.
Yeah. Well, you don't expect anything good. I think that part is predictable. They will do things that destroy but not create.
Yeah, that's right. That part's predictable.
Yeah, the second part of the question was just asking if you'd watched that new movie Civil War. Apparently, I believe it comes out today on digital services. You know that
Oh,
the new. So if you want to watch it, you can watch it this weekend. But I'm planning to.
yeah. Well, I think I will. Well, where?
You should be able
Which?
to get it on Apple or Amazon. I think all of them. I believe it was the 24th is when it was coming out.
Oh, oh, I'll definitely have to watch that. Actually,
I've been
yes.
interested to see it.
Uh, yeah, I've heard that. The reviews I've read about it. It's some reporters who are presumed to be PC lefties are traveling across the country in the throes of a civil war where areas of the country are seceding and so forth. Yeah, I'd like to watch it. Yeah, very
Yeah.
much. I'll give you a
Okay.
book
Well,
report after I.
yeah. I was gonna say, if you watch it over the weekend, assuming it is available, then we can compare notes next week.
Yeah.
Okay, just let me do a couple more questions here. Have you done any research on how the human brain works? And if so, can you suggest any particular scientific paper or book or maybe an author that you think is worth reading on the subject?
No, I really can't. Uh, I really can't. In fact, I even ask myself, this is going back to that first question about God. I mean, the question is are you a spiritual being just inhabiting a body temporarily? And if that's the case, I mean, not your soul. I mean, you don't have a soul. If that's the case, you are a soul that's inhabiting a body. Very interesting way of looking at it, which is not the way most people look at it. So is that what thinks and not your brain? How important is your brain? If that, it's a question of your whole cosmology, frankly, looking at the brain, unless you're just, uh, I don't know, frankly. That's a
Hmm.
cosmic question.
But you would lean on the more biological evolutionary side of things. Then in that case, the brain and the brain function will be more important, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is important. I mean, certainly with lower animals, it all seems to work through the brain, the size of the brain and so forth. But I haven't really read a lot about the brain function and exactly how it all relates to who you are and what you can do and so forth. I'm just not sure. I mean, a lot of your ability, I mean, look, when it comes down to it's a question of nature or nurture, part of it too. If you have a brain, do you have to develop it well, I don't know. I'm more of a nature guy because there's some people that are just born natural athletes, like uh, all the really great athletes. Uh, they were born that way, frankly. I mean, so they won that lottery.
Hmm.
Uh, and maybe that's true for ability to calculate mathematically and remember things. I'm not sure. And can you improve that? To what degree can you improve I don't know, well, you can improve your body's performance even if you're not particularly good at a sport. You can get better at it. So it must be this. Don't know. This is all conjecture on my part. So the answer is I don't know.
Okay. All right. Just let's see. A couple more. Considering it's an election year and the potential chaos that could come, are you planning on returning to the empire this year?
I am not going to be in the US if I can help it uh, anywhere near the election. I'm, I mean, here's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to start getting pretty wild and woolly come the summer. And the time is ripe for fighting in the streets, as Mick Jagger's sung. So, yeah, I plan on being in the US for the summer, mainly because it's convenient in a lot of ways and the weather's good. Uh, because it's winter down here and I don't like winter, even though it's not bad. Uh, but I don't want to be around anywhere near. Guy Fawkes Day, which is an odd coincidence this year.
It's a beautiful coincidence, though. I mean, it really is. Really is. Okay, so you are going to the U.S., but you're going to be long gone before
Yeah,
election
my
day.
wife is actually very opposed to going back to the US because she she's very, very bright, but she's drawn to all these conspiracy sites, so-called, with, way I say it, questionable information. I mean, and she doesn't want to go back there at all. She's just afraid that, well, and of course she's right. People that run the country are crazy people. So
Well, you're the one who keeps saying the Jacobins are in control and they're not going to let go of the wheels, the reins of power.
I
So
know. Well, I just hope they're not as crazy as I think they could be. I mean, are these people, I mean, did anybody really guess when Pol Pot took over Cambodia that he'd be that crazy? I don't think anybody guessed he'd be that crazy. And I'm not saying that the Jacobins in Washington are going to do this, but they think Pol Pot killed a quarter of the country. That's a lot of that is like really major league. And did anybody really think that was going to happen?
hmm.
So, like in Rwanda, I mean, it was pretty mellow. And then these people all went crazy. And the the Hutus killed nobody knows, 1 million, the numbers of Tutsis with machetes, basically.
The
I
hard
mean,
way.
yeah, this is crazy stuff. So things like this happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen in the U.S., but I think it's going to be really unpredictable and potentially chaotic. I hope I'm dead wrong and everything's just
Normal summer.
Jasper. Yeah, who knows? But I don't want to. Look, I've said, how many years have I said this? I want to watch this on my widescreen from a safe location out of my front window.
It'd be really ironic if you, of all people, were
It's
watching
gonna
it
be.
out of your.
It would be ironic. It really would be. It's,
All right, let's hope that's avoided. I know you'll be on alert and get on a plane if anything starts to get a little weird, but
oh yeah.
yeah. Okay, let me find just one last one.
I mean,
Let's
it's
see.
not like, if I'd like to think that if I was on the beach and I saw the water receding rapidly way out there, that I wouldn't just sit there and wonder what's going to happen next. I'd start running towards high ground. So maybe I hope there's a warning like that.
Yeah, it does always seem like there's always a warning. It's just no one pays attention to them, I think.
Yeah,
So
that's right. This time it's different.
yeah. Okay. So last question. What do you think about the increasing chances of a serious coronal mass ejection, that would wipe out power for extended periods around the world? And would you still want to be in Buenos Aires if that occurred? This is background. The reason the CMEs are getting through with increasing intensity is that the Earth's magnetic field continues to weaken due to magnetic poles slowly shifting.
Well, I like to read a lot of science, very interested in science, astronomy especially, actually. So, yeah, that's possible. Wouldn't want to be in any major city. Buenos Aires is a major city. Don't want to be there uh, if something like that happens. So I'd be much, much happier out on the farm where I am right now, incidentally. So I don't know, but can you plan on that? And you just don't know. Look, the sun is spewing out coronal mass ejections all over the place all the time, but it's like 360 degrees, and the sun is how big is the sun? It's roughly about 1 million miles in diameter. I believe that's
Hmm.
the correct number. Uh, and it's always throwing these things out. And the Earth is about 92 million miles away from the sun. So at some point, just the law of large numbers by chance, it's going to happen. So,
And we got a solar flare the other day that people made a big deal out of, and that didn't really seem to cause any disruption, even though it was the largest one, I think, since 2005 or something.
yeah, try not to get too concerned about these cosmic problems. I mean, listen, if the dinosaurs had known that asteroid was going to hit, would it have done them any good other than, ruin their last 2 weeks before it hit?
Exactly. That's exactly the right answer. I mean, there are so many problems that are right in front of us to be concerned about, cataclysms like this that are global in nature and can't be avoided.
Yeah,
It's not worth the time.
can't be avoided, and there's not much you can do about it if they happen. Forget about it. Yeah. I wouldn't put that high on my worry list.
Yeah, I
It's
worry more
good
about
to
the
know as an
migrants in the
academic.
U.S.
Yeah, it's good to know as an academic matter, but I don't want to get too concerned about it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's so many other problems. We're about the economy, the debt, the migrant problem, the Jacobins, World War III.
Yeah.
I mean, the list is pretty long before we get to coronal mass
Ah,
ejections.
God, we have so many things to worry about. Like, who was it that said, life isn't full of problems? Life is problems.
Yeah. I like Buddha's thing. It says, everyone has precisely 83 problems, and the 83rd problem is the desire to not have problems.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there for today, Doug. Thank you so much. We'll be back on Wednesday and, get an update on World War III.
Yeah, which seems to be building momentum at this point, the morons that are in control of society. And I do look forward to next Friday just to see what everybody else is thinking, and we can bounce around a few. I don't know if we have any solutions, frankly.
No, but I like the questions.
I do too. Yeah, I enjoy the questions.
Yeah.
They're
So keep them coming, folks.
mentally stimulating.
They really are. And I like it. We're getting to not just like stock picks, gold price kind of questions, but even the big questions are, this is why I love to hear you talk about the moral questions, the philosophical questions. Those have always been my favorite.
Yeah, and the day will come. In fact, I think we're building momentum where all these crappy, highly volatile little stocks that people like myself like to watch, where they take off and fly, and we all feel well, and hopefully that it'll insulate us from a whole bunch of problems. So we'll have more resources to command to insulate us from these problems, which is good.
Exactly. 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 All right. Well, I hope you get to watch Civil War this weekend, and we'll be back next week.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.